the Western attempts to block global logistics, financial flows, transactions, payments, settlements. Minister is expected to express his remarks on November 18th on plenary sessions dedicated to such issues as countering inequality, hunger and poverty, and reforms of global institutes. On the sidelines of the summit, Minister will have a series of bilateral talks and contacts. The G20 presidency aims to find the common denominator and reasonable compromise and an equitable balance of interests following preceding presidencies held by the countries of the global majority, by India 2023 and by Indonesia in 2022. Partners firmly adapt the agenda of the Group of 20 to the new configuration of the multipolar world order. The coordination between emerging economies has become more effective. In particular, I'm talking about BRICS countries and dialogue partners. For the first time, the new Development Bank and League of Arab States are invited to attend the meeting, and the African Union has been successfully working at the G20, and I remind you that it was invited last year. From our part, we are ready to promote unifying ideas aimed at the achievement of sustainable development, taking into account various national economic models and strategies. We advocate reasonable energy transition, maintaining open and non-discriminatory international trade, establishment of market mechanisms beyond the control of narrow interests in the spirit of the BRICS-Kazan summit decisions like the independent grain exchange and mechanisms for financial flows. We are ready to contribute to further depoliticization of the G20. We are ready to condemn the Western double standards. We are ready to fight against the attempts of the United States and their allies to cast a veil over humanitarian crisis in the Gaza and the use of economic tool set as an instrument of confrontation and to suppress dissent and neocolonial exploitation. We welcome the fact that the G20 has resumed issuing ministerial declarations without imposing geopolitical narratives by the West. In particular, we'll make sure that the leaders' declaration will contain the arrangements reached by the G20 foreign ministers at the meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly on September 25th that have outlined a vector of the relevant transformations like raising the voice of the global majority in global structures of decision-making processes from the UN Security Council to the IMF and the World Bank, as well as the renewal of the normal operation of WTO that is blocked by the Americans. We are ready to play the role of the reliable supplier of food and energy resources to the friendly countries of the global south and east, and will also draw attention to the capabilities of the Greater Eurasian Partnership, the establishment of supply chains free from Western dictate and logistic routes and payments and settlement schemes. And we are ready to work with the presidency and national delegations of the G20. We are ready to make the significant contribution to the success of the upcoming G20 Summit, and we wish our Brazilian friends every success in their work. November 21st, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs will host the third meeting of Interagency Commission on Caspian Cooperation, chaired by the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. It will be attended by the leaders of the line ministries and agencies of Russia, 3 Russian coastal regions of Astrakhan region, Republic of Dagestan, Republic of Kalmykia, as well as by the representatives of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation. It is planned to discuss a wide range of issues related to the Russian national interests in the region of the Caspian Sea, as well as the prospects for the development and enhancement of the Caspian Sea cooperation. November November 21st, 22nd, the Minister Lavrov will pay a working visit to Brest, the Republic of Belarus, to take part in the joint meeting of the collegiums of the Russian and Belarusian foreign ministries. Such meetings, as you know, are held annually since the year 2000, and they serve as an effective mechanism that helps the two countries to synchronize their efforts on the international stage. As part of the event, the countries will continue to coordinate their approaches to cooperation with the countries of the global majority, what we call countries of the global south and global east, in multilateral formats, especially in the SEO and BRICS, and to coordinate joint efforts to counter judicial, legal, and sanctions aggression of the collective West. Participants plan to adopt the resolution and plan of ministerial consultations for the year 2025. Ministers will also sign a joint statement on the common vision of the Eurasian Charter of Diversity and Multipolarity for the 21st century, as well as the bilateral declaration on increasing the role of international law and guiding principles to qualify unilateral coercive measures as illegal ways and methods to address, mitigate and offset the negative effects of such measures. During his stay in Belarus, Sergei Lavrov will have talks with his Belarusian counterpart to exchange views on the relevant issues of bilateral cooperation and international agenda, as well as they will ensure the foreign political coordination at multilateral venues. They will pay special focus to the diplomatic support for integration processes within the Union State, including the preparations for the Supreme State Council of the Union State that is scheduled for the beginning of December, and that coincides with the 25th anniversary for the signing of the Treaty on the Establishment of the Union State in 1999. Sergei Lavrov will visit a memorial complex, the Brest Fortress, and will lay flowers at the monument to its defenders who took the first strike of Nazi invaders. And this is a memorial complex that have become for many generations of our citizens an example of bravery, persistence and self-sacrifice in the defense of our human land. And now, moving to international agenda, I'll start with the situation in Ukraine. In the beginning, I would like to say that 10 years ago, on November 14, 2014, the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, signed a decree number 875/2014, brought into force the decision of the National Security and Defense Council of November 4, 2014, on immediate measures to stabilize the social and economic situation in Donetsk and Lugansk situations. This actually has launched the financial, economic and transportation blockade in Donbass. Its population was isolated by the Kyiv regime, and these measures were taken against the residents of the Donbass because its population refused to recognize the dictatorship of radical nationalists who came to power as a result of the anti-constitutional coup d'etat that was orchestrated by the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Baltic countries, and Poland too, and other allies, as a result of the coup d'etat orchestrated by these countries that took place in Kyiv in February 2014. The population refused to accept the results of the coup d'etat. The population of the Donbass decided to protect their legitimate rights and freedoms. Having failed to defeat the residents of Donbass with their regular army and Banderite enforcers from the so-called voluntary battalions, neo-Nazi rulers of Ukraine have decided to take the region by starvation, by depriving its residents of livelihood, to make them to starve to death and to suffer. What Poroshenko said when he talked about the residents of Donbass, that's what the president of Ukraine said. He said that they're going to live in the underground. Their children will live in the underground, while people on the other part of Ukraine will prosper. And all of that took place with the tacit approval of the West. The West didn't just ignore the situation, they pandered to the situation. Today, the Kyiv regime continues to wage terror against the civilians of Russia by attacking civil infrastructure with artillery shelling and UAV attacks. The armed forces of Ukraine have carried out a massive air attack on November 10th. They used in total 84 UAVs. November 8th have become a tragic day for the residents of Korlovka. A suicide drone attack on the service vehicle of the power company killed 2 employees and the driver sustained heavy injuries. I'm talking about civilians. The detonation of the unexploded cluster bomb killed a woman. UAV attack has injured 2 men and 10 people were injured as a result of the attacks between November 8th and November 11th in the DPR. On November 9th, 1 person died and 2 were injured as a result of the barbaric shelling by the Ukraine Nazis of the temporary accommodation center in Novaya Kakhovka, Kherson region. Between November 8th and 12th in the Belgorod region, the Ukrainians attacked civil infrastructure, I repeat, civil infrastructure and residential homes, and they used 231 ammunition and 110 UAVs. 2 persons died, 11 were wounded on November 9th at the entry to the Stary Hutor village as a result of the car detonation. His wife has received multiple shrapnel wounds. On November 10th, in Shebakina, drones have attacked several houses. A woman in Gorlovka, DPR, have told the mass media about the horrors that she survived when she witnessed how the tank hit residential houses, and later she became a target of the next hit, and she has received a post-concussion syndrome and miraculously survived. The Russian soldiers have registered how Russian nationals and citizens are being harassed and bullied, how people rush into their homes, how their homes are put on fire. Probably the White House, the State Department should turn on their TV and to finally watch those TV channels that they are trying to ban their broadcasting, so that they could finally see what's going on there without any actors, without any show. They will see the real citizens, the real people. This is the TV show that has been going on for years, and it has been taken at the expense of American taxpayers. And it happens due to the supplies of American weapons and the work that White House has been conducting together with their allies to increase these weapon supplies. I understand that cinema awards are awarded now to the Kyiv regime. It has become a tradition already. This is a horrible TV series. People deserve to live normally. They deserve to survive. The Russian soldiers who cleaned the Kursk region from the Ukrainian Nazis have once again registered the practice of using by Ukrainians of civilians as living shield after near their military hardware, near the village Plechova. All of those responsible to these and other atrocities of the Kyiv regime will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The Russian courts continue to pass verdicts on Ukrainian neo-Nazis and foreign mercenaries for their military crimes in line with the evidence collected by the Investigative Committee of Russia for shelling civil infrastructure. Again, I repeat, civil infrastructure of Mariupol from March 2nd to April 2nd, 2022. The Supreme Court of the DPR has sentenced 8 fighters of the Ukrainian mortar platoon, civets Galatsky, Bulav, Zharenka, Bilak, Boshkov, Bey, and Kurilenko to prison term of 15 to 17 years. The mastermind and the leader of the attack in 2018 on the Russian Center for Science and Culture in Kyiv, leader of the Ukrainian national radical organization Black Committee, Bogdan Titskoy, was sentenced in absentia to 14 years of prison. He was proven guilty of committing crimes punished by the Russian Criminal Code, in particular public calls to carry out terrorist activities, organization and management of the attack on the official premises of persons using international protection. It was established that on February 18, 2018, Bogdan Titsky has led the attack where 300 extremists had thrown stones and staining liquids at the building of the Russian Center of Science and Culture in Ukraine, and they broke window glasses, and they have put anti-Russian graffitis on the facade by inflicting material damage to the property. We have installed criminal investigation against a mercenary in Georgia, Alexei Bibichadze. Over the long period of time, he has been training mercenaries, and he was directly involved in the armed conflict on the territory of our country. It was established that together with our foreign mercenaries and Ukrainians in August, he entered the Kursk region and he intimidated the population and has inflicted the significant property damage and destabilized the work of authorities and committed crimes that are aimed at the murder and attempted murder of civilians. We have finished the investigations against 7 fighters of the Battalion 202, Brigade 103 of the Territorial Defense Unit of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Anatoly Voloshin, Vladimir Arshulik, Sergei Koraev, Alexander Doichuk, Zinovy Sigerich, Andriy Kulbaba, and Oleg Voft. They are accused of committing terrorist attacks in the territory of Kursk region. It was established that these persons have repeatedly opened fire against Russian soldiers and civilians in villages Krasnooktoberskaya, Snaga, Komarovka, Koronevsky district. As a result of the properly planned investigative action and operative activities, they were detained and arrested, and they have read the materials of the criminal cases that was provided to the prosecutor to adopt the indictment and to file it to a court. And let's see what the West thinks about that. They were talking about peace conferences, peace plans, and so on and so forth. Since Kyiv regime has been supported by NATO, by Anglo-Saxon countries, we would like to quote yesterday's interview, yesterday's comments of the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He said that we need to reaffirm our commitment to continue our course of war. Just how we can connect the organization of pseudo-peace conferences and promotion of some peace initiatives with the declared course to continue to wage war. Well, it can be easily combined in one head, because one of this statement is false, because Western countries and their sponsors on the Bankowe Street disguised as their peace initiatives. I believe that any state and any journalist, any public figure should read and the statements of Mark Rutte, so that the next time when Zelensky or someone else on the Bankowe Street, when their curators in the Foreign Office, Downing Street, Brussels, Paris, White House, when they will tell the international community about peace initiatives, they'll just need to remember that Mark Rutte on November 12th, he said that we, NATO countries, should do more than just retain Ukraine in the struggle. We need to increase the price for Putin and his authoritarian friends. This is the official statement of NATO. This is not the call to de-escalate the situation. This is not a call to have peace talks or to address the situation. This is a call to continue the bloody war. This is the statements are supported, made by other countries in their national capacities. All of these countries are saying that the same path should be continued. Just look at the statement made by the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, who made a farewell visit to Kyiv on November 9th. He supported the provision of the massive military assistance to the armed forces of Ukraine, and he supported to lift restrictions on strikes deep inside Russia. I think they made a mistake when he was appointed as the top diplomat of the European Union. Instead, he should have been responsible for supplying weapons to Ukraine. He said that I have been constantly pushing for more and faster. This have been my permanent call, and it's still true. More military support, more training capacities, more money, faster supplies, and also the permission to strike the enemy's military targets on its territory. Again, these are the words of Joseph Borrell. All of that confirms that the West has no plans to build peace. They still intend to continue to wage a hybrid war against our country with the help of Ukraine and until the last Ukrainian. Just look, November 7th, Budapest hosted the 4th summit of the European political community, which was attended by Zelensky as well. He tried to use its venue to promote the threadbare narratives in the spirit of the dead-end peace formula. He stated that it was unacceptable to have a ceasefire and any concessions for Russia are unacceptable. In his opinion, again, quote-unquote, ceasefire without security guarantees would mean complete occupation of Ukraine. At the same time, he hysterically begged for 300 million USDs in immobilized Russian assets in Europe, which allegedly belonged to Kyiv, so that the Banderite regime could independently decide what they should spend this money on. They should better use all the property and assets that were provided to Ukraine in support. As we can see that the further funding and pumping weapons to Zelensky's junta results into serious political and economic problems for their European allies. In the European Union, budgets have been falling apart at the seams, party coalitions dissolved, not talking about controllably falling rankings of governments. Europeans are even ashamed to broadcast Zelensky's remarks live because they understand that this official from Ukraine is only interested in money but not in the fate of the Ukrainian people. The question is when they will understand that the fate of the people of Ukraine And Ukraine itself has never been of interest to Zelensky. He has only been interested in its political ambitions. And Zelensky has actually been used by the West. We noted the publications in the British mass media about the intentions of Prime Minister of Great Britain Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron to try to convince the incumbent President of the United States, Joe Biden, to authorize Kyiv to attack Russia with Storm Shadow missiles before the inauguration of Donald Trump. Mass media wrote that London has hopes that the White House will finally approve such step. At the same very day, in his interview to one of the French media, the French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu stated that they have signed a decree that will provide the armed forces of Ukraine with at least 10 Scalp long-range missiles, with which, as they hope in Paris, Kyiv will finally be able to strike Russia beyond the front line. With these publications coincided with the information that emerged in the Ukrainian social media that Zelensky's regime intends to pass off Western missiles as Ukrainian-made products by changing its labels so that later they could attack Russia with them. It is hardly possible that such trickery can take place without the authorization of real hosts and patrons of the Kyiv junta. Would like to remind Washington, London, Paris and Brussels that they continue to play with fire. President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, has clearly outlined how we'll respond if Ukraine is authorized to carry out such attacks, because we will qualify it as NATO's entry into direct military conflict with Russia. It will change the essence of the conflict and its nature, with all the ensuing consequences and response to the use of Western systems against the territory of our country will be imminent and devastating. These facts have once again confirmed that the objectives of the special military operation to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine and to eliminate threats emanating from its territory hold true. So since we are talking about the dialogue and the realizations, and now let's talk about the essence of the dialogue. In the West, as you know, the West has repeatedly expressed its outrage when we have launched criminal investigations against journalists of foreign mass media when they enter Russia without obtaining the necessary visas. But they are so outraged as if their journalists are not bound by the applicable legislation of the country where they work.
Yes, indeed. We are also obliged to watch their reports as well in the territory of Russia, read their articles, follow their materials in the social networks. This is a part of our work. And in their materials, they justified the aggression of Ukrainian forces. So they never show the Russian prisoners of war, and they will never show the desecration of the monuments of those perished during the World War II. They will never tell about the Valdas Bartkevičius. This is the Lithuanian activists from the Friends of Russia, Friends of Ukraine. So he favors a complete ban on Russian language and culture in his country and in other European countries. Last December, he desecrated a monument to the poet Alexander Pushkin in Vilnius. So this is the much suffering poet. In March this year, he publicly justified the terrorist attack in Caucasus City Hall and brought a bucket of faces to spontaneously established memorial to the victims of the terrorist attacks at Caucasus City Hall outside the Russian embassy in Vilnius. It would be more correct to call him a right-wing extremist. Now he It's very hard for me to pronounce and to say this. It's just a pain, big pain. Now he desecrated the memorial to the fallen Soviet soldier in the village of Kazachaya in the Kursk region. Probably I have to say how he did it, because of the monstrous act. He has just urinated on the memorial, not just in the vicinity close to the memorial, it's just directly on the tombs of those people who liberated the European countries from Nazis. Does anyone else think that the aims of the special military operation, denazification, demilitarization in Ukraine are made up in gracious abstraction? The Western mainstream pretends that there are no neo-Nazis from all over Europe and from all over the world who were sent by the Western countries to Ukraine. There is nobody against whom our country has a noble cause to fight against, especially to protect those who died during the World War liberating the European countries. Now, these Nazis do exist, and they have come to our country, to our land. They desecrate the graves of our heroes, and not only our heroes. We looked in the memory book of Sichuan district, who is buried on the desecrated memorial. 68 soldiers, all are known. In addition to natives of Russian regions, Moscow, Khabarovsk, Sverdlovsk, Yaroslav, Kursk regions, Krasnoyarsk, Stavropol, Krasnodar territories, Gorky, Tambov, Belgorod, Kirov, Irkutsk, Ryazan regions, Tatar, Chuvash republics, Lugansk. There are also soldiers from Uzbekistan, Asanov, Khamankul, Tajiv, Tursun, Kazakhstan, by Makhatov, Jizhak, Kyrgyzstan, Borisenko, Pyotr Kononovich, Azerbaijan, Junior Lieutenant Jainalov, Jamil Jabalovich, and the same Ukraine, Partisan Kulesh, Mikhail Filipovich, Nezday Myshenko, Vasily Dmitrovich, Neimbay Vasily Markovich. So, this is the face of Kyiv regime, the face of the West, which is sponsoring the Kyiv regime, and any organizations from the world outside, from NATO member states or from other countries like United States, Canada, which stand for cherishing the memory of the heroes of the Second World War, and which are acting to protect Holocaust victims. So any one of these organizations have ever volunteered to say something, and this is one of the thousands crimes for desecration committed by the Kyiv regime. We are talking about thousands of monstrous acts. A lot of tombs, stones have been removed, painted with red paint, and just how many tombs were destroyed and moved under the false pretext, and no one said anything. And how can we put aside the memory of those victims of the World War II and those heroes who made it possible to liberate the survivors, those people who were not killed or survived, Can we divide this memory from these memories? Not, of course, but still this is what we see. And I believe the banishment just reach these desecrators of the memorials. We are waiting for the international response. We will talk about this at any international event. And the results of voting on the draft resolution against the glorification of Nazism in the United Nations testify to the shrinking space of neo-Nazism in the world. The borders of their reservation already coincide with the borals blossoming garden, and soon only brown plants will be left in it. Talking about the voting in the United Nations, we published the detailed results of this voting on our website. Now on the situation in Moldova, I will tell you how the, not people, but regime just sneaked to the power. They just voted for this resolution. We continue to follow the situation in Moldova. We see, as independent experts point out, the inconclusive results of the recent presidential elections and the referendum on EU membership have become not an incentive for the Moldovan authorities, and the entire electoral processes are turning not into the matter to rethink about the future of the country, but rather an aggressive promotion of the thesis about non-existent Russian threat. On November this year, during a visit to Moldovan Foreign Ministry, Russian ambassador Oleg Ozarev has handed a note of protest against Russia's alleged interference of Moldova's electoral process with an aim of distorting these results. Claiming that Russia allegedly launched 2 unmanned aerial vehicles on November 10th this year in Kasheny and Rusheny districts. We already commented on this on November 11th. No evidence was presented by the ruling regime, and it's not possible because there are no absolutely evidence of that, and obviously there will be none. Such tactics fully correspond to the behavior of the Western curators or handlers of the Moldovan authorities. It is in the West that they are accustomed to make an accusation in the style of highly likely. We firmly reject the unsubstantiated accusations by official Chisinau. The real background is very clear. This is done in order to justify the forced conversion or transfer of Moldova to so-called European standards. In fact, this is just European rails going to abysm. Their real essence consists in suppression of democracy and freedom of speech, militarization of the country. On November 6, criminal proceedings against main electoral rival of Maria Sandu, former Moldovan prosecutor Alexandru Stoyanoglu. On November 10th, the leadership of Moldovan police admitted to the pro-government media that thousands of people were under special surveillance. I just would like to remind you that similar pre-electoral stories or tactics, like in the United States, for example, just in fact led to serious consequences, like Watergate, taping, and so on. But at that time it was recognized as the violation of human rights with the specific conclusions drawn, and today it is regarded as a normal situation by the Western countries, ignoring this fact. It's not a big deal. Sandu's regime just tapped what the political rivals or opponents were saying. It's a normal case. So Moldova's pulling towards NATO continues. Lithuania claimed to provide military tactical assistance and the allocation of up to 2 million euros annually for a period of next 2 years. On October 31st, the Moldovan and Norwegian defense ministers signed an agreement on intention to strengthen defense partnership, as well as development of the programs to strengthen Moldova's defense capabilities. The same document was signed with Sweden on November 6. Moldova approved the start of negotiations with on a cooperation agreement with German and Danish. And what is the basis from the ideology point of view on which it is done? I will explain. On November 11th, Moldova was among the countries that voted against the UNGA resolution initiated by Russia on combating the glorification of Nazis. This is the basis for that, not anything else. This position of Moldovan authorities is no longer surprising. It is with the approval that the working on whitewashing the Third Reich collaborators in Moldova is in full swing. Last October, in Leova district, a memorial cross was erected with military honors, and 12 graves were landscaped at the place of death in 1941. Probably you can guess that we are talking about the heroes who would like to save their region from enemies. No, two Romanian soldiers who invaded the USSR in the phalanxes of Hitler's ally. And now they have the memorial, having the memorial crosses. On November 11th, another cemetery of Romanian heroes who died for the liberation of Bessarabia in July 1941 in Ciuciuli, Glodeni district was opened. It's obvious that the purpose of this disastrous course which the West is now imposing on Moldova is to bring a deep split into Moldovan society, to divide and weaken in order to use it for the geopolitical issues. Fortunately, the outcome or effect, impact of these actions is the opposite. The pressure of the West and the mockery of historical memory is rejected by Moldovans who consolidate to defend the sovereignty of their country. And they tune to cooperation with Russia, a proven friend and partner. We have always been and we will remain for the Moldovan people. Now I would like to turn to draw your attention. We were asked to comment on what is going on the attempts in the Baltics to block or isolate our country in the context of unprecedented increase in military and political tension in Europe, sanctions, pressure on Russia, traditional mechanism and multilateral cooperation. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs continues its systematic work in the Baltic Sea region. We consider the reckless course of Western countries to curtail essentially any cooperation with Russia in the economic, political, humanitarian, and environmental spheres to be unpromising. No matter how much some so-called experts may wish it, even after Finland and Sweden join the NATO, the Baltic Sea region will not turn into the internal body of water of NATO. It will always be a common space for all countries in the region. We will continue to systematically defend our national interest in the Baltic Sea and build our cooperation with responsible partners. Such cooperation is being established in particular through international scientific discussion platform Baltic Platform, which is established the initiative of Russia to develop its region. And my favorite, white helmets. This is the structure which is called in the West, depicted as a humanitarian organization. It's not just a handy organization, it's a part. It was generated by the special forces of the United States so that to implement their activities, including the criminal one, in the territory of other countries. And please, here we come, they celebrate the birthday, the 10th anniversary of creation of White Helmets on October 25th. The Foreign Office published the official statement signed by other structures. From a formal point of view, they have never been regarded or claimed that this is a humanitarian organization. Canada, Germany, Qatar, and the United States, now they congratulated this organization on their birthday. I just would like to look back and remind you of the White Helmets. After what they committed in the territory of Syria, turning the sufferings of these people into cheap PR actions, London is never trying to shy this organization, but they depict them as courageous and committed humanitarian workers. So the whole long list of crimes is following these organizations. Any chemical provocations in Syria, including in Doom event, was committed with a preliminary work with the special forces of Great Britain and the United States for the global community, where they appear, they are followed by dramatic events. In order to put a shame on legitimate Syrian government and member states of the United Nations. And this is what was rejected for many years by the Western countries, claiming that probably President Obama, former President Obama, said that Assad should go, but Assad just there and doing a lot in order to reanimate, revive the Syrian state, especially in the light what has been committed by these White Helmets. They also got poisoned children in order to get a good picture of this event. So please study this report prepared by the Fund of the Democratic Studies, which is called The Event in Syria, especially with the former employees of this structure, White Helmets, especially those who sympathize with terrorists. Now we hear less as compared with the previous, but because of the actions of their sponsors from British authorities and the United States, they are still working after the elimination of their leader, Lieutenant Colonel Leah Mezuria James. So after his eliminations, after his death in mysterious circumstances, Great Britain continued co-financing these organizations, and for the last 2 years, London spent transfer £3 million according to the official statistics. But off the counter, the number could be even higher with this financial speculation. So the volunteers, in brackets, got through grey schemes, through mediators. Probably it's not possible to say, probably some archives would have some light on that. So their presence is creating the instability in the territory of Syria, and This is the one of the things that should be rectified in order to improve the situation in this region and in globally. Now, on November 16th, we celebrate the 105th anniversary of the birth of the legendary diplomat, statesman, and scientist Anatoly Dobrynin. He had a glorious diplomatic path for a century to the post of the USSR ambassador to the United States. We published this information on our website. And of course, we are going to celebrate in informational field in this. And on 16th, 17th November, the Russian Geographical Society, with the participation of Minister of Foreign Affairs and Россотрудничество, is organizing the 10th annual international educational campaign, Geographical Dictation. It is focused on popularization of geographical knowledge and interest in science and natural heritage. More than 10,000 sites around the world have already joined this large-scale educational campaign this year. In addition to traditional venues such as schools, universities, and libraries, religious organizations of various denominations are participating. This diversity shows that the interest in the geography and history of one's native country unites people regardless of their religions and occupation. Among the venues, there is a wide sea iceberg combining the intellectual geographical journey, so everyone is invited to participate. Not about the iceberg. These are the graduates of Russian universities, representative of association, compatriots and societies of friendship with Russia. All information is on the website. And on November 10th, we will have the dialogue on 2.0 fakes. This is organized by NGOs dialogue. It was attended by the international experts, academia, in combating with the falsification and fakes on the internet. We believe that would be very interesting event once again, and we are going to take an active part in it. We have something to say it, and for many years we have been holding a website and fake, which contains the false information about Russia with corrections. We had the same types of websites earlier, but not in such scale and even in the light of the information wars, but as a specific genre. This now getting a new phenomenon, and we are holding this website supplemented with new elements, and we published specific materials, articles, and extracts of the information. Today we are going to publish special reviews, combining special information publications, and present sort of digests of these fakes. But I must say that using this opportunity, we would like to invite all the representatives of mass media, and if some representative of the special editions are tuned to this briefing and they're waiting for us, it would be very interesting to talk to them with the professionals who are specialized on this topic. The reference to the website is will be contained in the text of this text. In Ufa, we will have the 20th Forum of Inter-Regional Cooperation between Russia and Kazakhstan. The event is organized by the Ministry of Economic Development of Russia and Government of Republic of Bashkortostan and Ministry of Trade and Integration of Kazakhstan. It is held annually to maintain and develop economic, cultural, and humanitarian ties between two countries. Traditionally, it is attended by representatives of business, scientific, and social circles, ministries, heads of subjects of Russia and Kazakhstan. As a result of the forum in Kostanay last year, 5 inter-regional documents on cooperation were signed, as well as commercial agreements on the production of lifting equipment and food industry in amount of 7.7 billion rubles. A rich business and cultural program awaits the guest of 20th Forum. I'm envious of that. During these 2 days discussions, they would focus on potential of trade and economic cooperations, expansion of interregional ties. UFA knows how to host this event. This time, the hospitality would be at the same level. The exposition of the lifting and heavy gear equipment will be there, and the huge exhibition with various stands will be present. We also provide information on the official portal, so the participants could see the potential of Bashkortostan's and the Forum Youth Entrepreneurship of Russia and Kazakhstan bring together about 300 participants. One of the main cultural events will be a fashion show. The best designers from Russia and Kazakhstan will show their works. They will present clothing lines in national and modern design, and will demonstrate the achievements of this fashion industry. But we will expect another try. I'm referring to a gastronomic festival guest. Have the experience of attending these festivals. The guests could try traditional and author dishes. Please hold on. It would be very delicious for music lovers. The Voice of Friendship of Peoples Festival will be held. For accreditation details, for the media, and everything would be provided in the text of this briefing.
And another, I believe, quite useful information for you as part of the comprehensive state program to promote international cooperation. I would like to tell you about the project Russia with You. It will tell Russians and foreign nationals about the work of the Russian Federation in fostering international development. Russia-Сотрудничество is promoting the insignia of this brand among the partner organizations and is using the labels of the humanitarian cargo to promote it abroad and to make it more recognizable. Will also has launched a portal on fostering international development, RussiaForProgress.com, with the map of humanitarian projects and the open access to the brand book Russia Together with You. And we're also, as part of the project, the Volgograd organization, Volgograd Regional Public Organization, the Friendship House, with the support of Россотрудничество, the Russian Emercom, Ministry of Defense, and the Federal Agency for Ethnic Affairs, the Russian Railways. All together, they have supplied humanitarian assistance in crisis zones, and they have supplied more than 100 tons. By following the example of Volgograd, more than 55 regions of Russia have already joined the international humanitarian projects. Humanitarian assistance that is supplied by the Russian Ministry of Emercom have also labeled with the logo Russia Together with You to coordinate the efforts of agencies to promote information about the Russian assistance abroad. Moreover, the branded products Russia with You is spread among partner organizations. For example, it was provided to the participants of the Great African Scientific Expedition initiated by the Russian Fishing Agency. Two research vessels of Russian Fishing Agency, Atlantniro and Atlantida, had that labels. So we have we will provide all the links in the text version of our briefing, so I believe it's quite a useful and interesting information for you. And I would like to make some announcement about our information work. We continue to expand our digital diplomatic family. Before the first ministerial conference of the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum was organized, we have launched the Telegram channel of the Russian Foreign Ministry in French. Now, our friends, primarily from Africa, like-minded countries and people all over the globe, and those who have genuine interest in Russian positions and key issues of global agenda can acquire credible and impartial information about the Russian foreign policy, to read and to watch remarks and statements of the leadership of our country and of our ministry without distortions and paraphrase, so they could provide information directly, and they can avoid the paraphrase by the biased mainstream French media. They can avoid now artificial barriers and the Western censorship. The Telegram channel of the Russian Foreign Ministry now exists in the French language, and we will provide information about rich culture, achievements of our country and beauties of our beautiful country, apart from covering issues of the international agenda. Please subscribe, bienvenue, and again, you'll find a link in the text version of the briefing. I would like to speak on one topic in particular, and I would like to speak to journalists, those who are listening to our briefing online and those who are going to read our briefing later. And this is the announcement for the journalist communities, unions, associations in general. UNESCO Secretariat and Director General Azoulay continue to ostentatiously ignore the crimes of Kyiv regime committed against Russian journalists, including targeted killings, terrorist acts, and attempted murders. We are outraged by another draft report. Again, it's a draft report that was presented by the Director General of UNESCO, and it will be submitted to the International Programme of Communications Development on November 21st, 22nd in Paris. This report was made out of some information and data, but these reports and this information is biased, and we know where it comes from politically biased Western or pro-Western non-governmental organizations. The report totally ignores the killings of Russian media workers, and it doesn't reflect the real situation with the security and safety of journalists and the issue of impunity for crimes committed against mass media workers. The methodology of the report is quite controversial because it has biased criteria that allow to determine what journalists killed journalists should be praised or shouldn't be praised. How is it even possible? So, for example, if a Western journalist was killed, then he deserves to be mentioned by Ms. Azoulay, but maybe a journalist from another country is killed, then he shouldn't be mentioned. The statistics in the report says that in the period between 2022-2023, no Russian journalist was killed. You have no shame, Ms. Azoulay. In this situation, you have no intellect. How dare you present this document to the international community? We regret that over the period of the report period, Daria Dugina, Vladlen Tatarsky, Oleg Lokov, Rostislav Zhuralov, Maxim Maksudov were killed. The Russian journalist Rostislav Zhuralov, whose killing Ms. Azule has commented, but she didn't condemn, but just regretted his killing. His name was added to the list of killed Ukrainian journalists. UNESCO has ignored the official list of persecutions and killings of Russian journalists. The geographic and political bias have affected not only Russia, but many other countries. I would like to support and to defend not only Russian journalists, but I would like to speak about all those who were ignored by Ms. Azule because they represent other countries. They have downplayed the number of Arab journalists that died as a result of indiscriminate attacks of Israel against Palestine in 2023. I'm talking about 24 journalists. At the end of 2023, 97 violent murders were recorded of foreign journalists. Unreliable fake information was provided. The report has become an instrument of spreading disinformation. The Director General should bear the full responsibility for this. She has received a countless number of reports and requests about the crimes committed by the Kyiv regime against journalists, but now we see that she deliberately, it wasn't an accident, she deliberately didn't add these journalists in her report. Such actions, but well, rather inactions, have a negative effect on the situation in the organization itself. It provokes the politicization, polarization of opinions, and actually the UNESCO steps away from its own mandate because it steps away from its distinctness in the UNESCO's charter and resolutions, condemnations of the killing of journalists. The organization is undermining its own founding pillars of work. What has been developed for decades, Ms. Azule is ready to sacrifice it to opportunistic interests of the bloody Kyiv regime that is so protected by Western countries. I remember when the times when such reports were mentioned in the statements and press releases, when they mentioned journalists when have become victims of everyday crimes, and there was no opportunity to say that there was a fight which has nothing to do with the professional occupation of a journalist. But even if they said that a journalist went out of the cafe and had a quarrel with someone else, but since this person was a journalist, this person should be protected anyway. Dozens of people over the past year have died holding their microphone and camera in their hands. They weren't just media workers, and they've just fulfilled their duties. They understand that they risk their life, but nonetheless they were ready to risk their life to show the true information. UNESCO, its Secretariat and its Director General has all the information, but they prefer to disregard it, and they are doing that on the national basis. The connection is clear and evident. which nullifies the mandate of UNESCO and makes us question if Ms. Azoulay should head such organization. It is the racist approach of the Director General of UNESCO, and we cannot tolerate it. We are going to elaborate our tough position at the next meeting of UNESCO, as well as at other relevant activities of UNESCO. We will raise this question, and now I'm ready to answer your question. International Life, please. Hello. Over the past week, the head of the Polish Bureau of National Security, Jacek Sewera, in his interview stated that any initiatives to put an end to the conflict in Ukraine should stem from the current realities. And I would like to quote, any negotiations that should lead to peace should take into account the current realities. That's how he responded to the reports from the President-elect team to settle the crisis in Ukraine. What do you think about things? I think that the head of the Polish Bureau of National Security quoted our position. That's what the Russian Federation has been saying for so long. Settlement of Ukraine is impossible without addressing its root causes, taking into account the security situation and the situation on the ground. That's what the President and Foreign Minister have been talking about. Territorial realities should be taken into account, in particular the rights of people to self-determination. We cannot speak about lasting and durable peace without ensuring the neutral, non-bloc status of Ukraine, without eradicating Nazism in this country. Poland continues to suffer from Nazism emanating from Ukraine until all discriminatory laws are abolished that go against norms that were adopted by the European Union. That's what President Putin said when he expressed his remarks in the premises of the Russian Foreign Ministry on June 14th, when he has provided all the terms to put an end to the conflict in Ukraine. This is a process. When we see that they finally begin to understand, maybe it's something else. Maybe they realized it before. It's difficult to say. But I think that we have everything here, realities on the ground, realities in the budgets of countries of the EU, realities on their ground, given the processes taking place in their country, and the Russian arguments and positions. I think that they have been listening to them, but they just pretended that they didn't listen. I think that all the factors should be taken into account, and I believe that they are starting to realize. Thank you. And the second question, you have mentioned this event. I mean the European Political Community Summit that was hosted by Budapest on November 7th and 8th. What do you think about its outcomes? Well, to draw the line, this event has demonstrated that this format is targeted against Russia, that it is aimed at confrontation with Russia. They're speaking about peace. They make slogans about peace and security in Europe, but against the backdrop of these calls and words made by countries taking part in this event, they say that they won't allow ceasefire in the Donbass, that they will continue to provide weapons to the Kyiv regime. What's next there? They will address the situation on the battleground. It is quite fits into organically, because when they're speaking when they are speaking about peace and all their statements and words about peace that are made by the EU officials, all of their words are false. They should just abandon their steps like providing weapons to Ukraine. Moreover, we have noticed the spirit of neo-colonialism that was in every statement. They are trying to impose neo-colonial approaches on sovereign states. They are trying to impose anti-Russian policy on independent countries, assuming that they have a right to do that. They are trying to use the European political community to pretend that they are going to have closer ties with the candidate countries, with the EU, and to fit them into an aggressive policy of Brussels. But at the same time, we hear quite the adverse effects. Multilateral formats are ruined. They are replaced with the new initiatives to which Russia is not invited, but I just can't imagine how they can ensure peace and security without inviting Russia to such formats. Moreover, these states haven't yet abandoned the concept of equal and indivisible security, or probably they have switched to the straightforward neo-colonial mentality. If they still have the understanding of equal and indivisible security, then they should stop undermining stability and security in Europe and stop drawing dividing lines, stop waging hybrid wars. But while they continue to do so, we'll continue to make our own conclusions from that. And as for the informal meeting of the European Council, its main conclusion is that they have no real outcome from their meeting. They have been singing as a mantra the text that they seek to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. Everything that happens next is happening by inertia. But we see that their social and economic situation is getting worse, and their countries have become less and less competitive. Businesses are leaving their countries. Well, they do that because their problems are so clear and evident, and they are unable to silence these issues and to conceal them. The report of the former Prime Minister Draghi that was discussed at the summit has revealed all the weak sides of the European Union, including the adverse effects of politically motivated severance or suspension of mutually beneficial cooperation with our country. We have provided our in-depth and thorough comments on that. You can find that in the text versions of our briefings. But it is obvious that the European Union is trying to find a way out of the dead-end situation, but it's difficult for them because they cannot recognize the truth. They cannot admit that their policies failed. The only solution for them is to recognize that the anti-Russian policy imposed on Brussels by the United States does not correspond to the interests of the European Union itself. This policy is targeted against the European Union itself, taking into account geopolitical features, taking into account historical moments and distribution of resources. It is time for EU countries to understand that the gravity of economic problems that they are experiencing is directly proportional to their servility, to their obedience to the United States, but they won't recognize it because it means that they will lose some part of their sovereignty, and they don't want to do that. It's understandable. But the overall situation around Nord Stream pipelines is telling. Someone has done it. Someone from NATO countries has done it, but they can't even recognize it. They can't point fingers. They can find those responsible for that. President Biden and Deputy Secretary of State Nuland said that. They can't even say that someone did that, especially someone who is from NATO countries, from NATO allies. They do not hold any press conference or briefing. They don't provide any information. They continue to pander to their overseas partners. Ursula von der Leyen has solemnly promised to the new White House administration to increase imports of American liquefied natural gas that is much more expensive than the Russian gas, and that reduces the competitiveness of the EU economy. Can you just imagine Ursula von der Leyen pledged, to the detriment of your own countries, to buy much more expensive goods for their countries? It's the act of absurdity that we're observing today. European Council has drawn special attention to the Trump victory in the US election and how it's going to affect the transatlantic relations. I believe that the way how EU countries reflect on that shows their dependence on Washington. They cannot even admit it. They cannot admit that it's a sovereign decision by a country that is not an EU member, because for them it will be a change of in leadership of the EU, and such a change in the leadership will be so significant and important that it again strengthens their dependence, and they don't even know how to show their manners in the decent way. I think that we have spoken about it for too long time, and I believe that everything is clear. Ria Novosti, please. Hello, Ms. Zakharova. Hello. I have two questions for you. The first, mass media reported that the Russia-Finland border might be reopened in 2025. Can you confirm or refute this information? Is Russia ready for taking such a step, taking into account the outright Russophobic policy of Finland and the fact that it provides military assistance to Ukraine? How can we even argue whether such step is possible or not? If publications shouldn't use conditionals here, because it's up to Finnish authorities to decide. Because if this article was written by a Finnish mass media, I think that they should have just made a call. I just recall that under the false and far-fetched pretext of Finland has closed the border, they said that Russia has instrumentalized the border to send more migrants into Finland, and therefore Finland has decided to totally close border crossing checkpoint to uphold human rights. This is the ongoing position of the Finnish authorities, and I believe that we should go away from empty discussions, and we need to respond to the official statements of the Finnish authorities. The question should be asked to Helsinki: are they ready to reopen the border or not? Because we have already said that this decision is politically motivated. The decision was taken without having any consultations with the Russian Federation that is open for dialogue with Helsinki to ensure the operation of the joint border. I think that there is quite an interesting detail in question. that could be the answer of the question. To open the border and to make the lives of our citizens more comfortable, Finnish authorities should stop the Russophobic fervor and to give the sensible assessments if the reopening of borders will meet the interests of their own citizens. Let's not think about Russian citizens. They just need to think first and foremost about their own citizens. Will that decision promote their own economy? And I think that this Finnish mass media should pose these questions to the Finnish authorities. I think it is obvious that such decision won't promote humanitarian cooperation and people-to-people contacts, but anyway, we would like to receive an official reply from the Finnish authorities so that journalists wouldn't write assumptions in their statements. Several years passed after agreements were signed by Russian, Armenian, and Azerbaijani leaders. It was in 2020. I think it's difficult to exaggerate the meaning of this trilateral statement. Russia, Vladimir Putin, in his personal capacity, has made a giant step to stop the bloodshed. In January in 2021, a summit was held in Russia at the initiative of the Russian president, and it was attended by the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan, and it kicked off the peace process. The trilateral working group was established, co-chaired by the deputy prime ministers of the three countries to address all the logistic and transportation issues in the Caucasian region. And based in line with the statement of November 20, 2020, the main areas for work to normalize relations between the two countries were identified. They discussed the blockade, delimitation, demarcation of the border, development of contacts between civil society organizations. So when the work has been carried out in this trilateral working group, real results were achieved in a broad range of issues. And June 2023, we were close to establishing transport routes in the region, but due to Western influence, Yerevan has frozen its participation in the group and in all trilateral formats. Just let me be frank and let me recognize that the United States and the European Union, who have tried to take the role of international intermediary, weren't able to invent anything new. They just copied our experience and expertise, and they tried to subjugate its peace process to their own.
It's obvious they would like to put the pressure on the region while squeezing out Russia and Turkey. It's another source of tension, and they completely don't care about the fate of the people living in this region. They have their own ambitions, but in contrast to the Western countries, we would like to see this region prosperous and living in peace. We have historically established interest, financial, economic, political, because it meets our interests, and this is the guarantees, the guarantee of stability and security. In this part, the Russian Federation is prepared to support both Azerbaijan and Armenia in order to reach the high-level agreement. Do we have media corporation of China? Yes, we have also two questions. The 31st APEC informal leaders will be held soon. The theme of conference, empowerment, inclusion and growth. It will focus on trade, investment, energy and digital transformation. What are the challenges faced by the countries of this region, and what measures or method of cooperation can be important for this region? We just recently, among these challenges, we always list pandemic, international terrorism, human-made disasters, natural disasters, inequality between the states, and combating hunger and so on. But judging by the historic course taken into account, wars, colonization, historic roots of establishment of this prosperous or blossoming garden. So instead of these challenges, now we face the human-made disasters like information wars, economic sanctions as a tool of the economic war, the elimination or destruction of the security architecture, sometimes suffered. So the Western countries are not showing any shyness and be limited by international law. We would like to see the balanced, mutually beneficial, equitable and inclusive dialogue in APR. A significant obstacle to progress, as I said, is the responsible policy of the Western countries. Their attempts to use neo-colonialism or colonial revenge to maintain their former dominance. I just mentioned them. I'm referring to protectionism, which is running counter to their values, unilateral sanctions, trade barriers, unfair competition, which have led to the disruption of global supply chains, soaring inflation and prices, and the demise of understanding of the people, companies, or corporations about the ways of development. And we see the persistent attempts by the collective West to realize its geopolitical ambitions by artificially fragmenting the regional space on the principle of divide and rule, promoting NATO ideology while suppressing the political advantages. We see the only effective method of overcoming these challenges as uniting the efforts of the world majority countries to increase their contribution. And the APEC Forum plays a central role in building practical regional cooperation. And it's very useful tool for fine-tuning common approaches in trade liberalization, digitalization, transport, food and energy security. And I would like to stress the efficiency of the Russian-China nexus on the APEC platform. We have managed to set a positive tone for the forum's efforts to overcome challenges in the global economy and prevent the social economic mandate from being diluted. We see good prospects for increasing our constructive cooperation in the interest of building an open, dynamic, viable, including and peaceful Asia-Pacific community in accordance with the Zaporizhzhia guidelines, APEC Zaporizhzhia guidelines 2040. Today, the development prospects of Asia-Pacific region largely depend on whether it will follow the path of cooperation and interconnectedness, which are harmonized by international law, or it will turn to the trajectory of the so-called interaction, not to the detriment of others, or turn to the trajectory of Western narratives and turn into the Indo-Pacific project oriented towards the creation and maintenance of an America-centric system. So, in other words, neocolonialism. So they focused on fragmentation of the regional political economic space, the disruption of established trade and supply chains, and the reformatting of decade-old economic ties. They are doing and using various tools like unfair competition, disregard of any agreements, and implementation of any forms of regional trade wars. And these actions put the states away from the established goals, which are stable and positive economic growth, dynamic economic growth. They diverting them without reaching those goals inside the region, agreed by the countries of the region. Why? Once again, we're coming back to the unfair competition. The Western countries are lagging behind technologically. That is why it's very difficult to keep up, and that is why they use the whole range of measures in order to pull back the growth, economic growth of these countries, and those lost opportunities for their own development, and where NATO appears wait for a disaster. Thank you very much. In Guangdong, the 15th China Air Show is being held. 47 countries from various regions are taking part. The Russian Su-55, Sukhoi 57 fighter jet also showing its debut. Can you comment and what are the advantages of this air show? I believe it's up to the expert to comment on that, the flight of this.
Не, я крышу для себя понимание, что
человек.
Відроди попали.
Не, я крышу для себя понимание, что
А что человек?
Наконец-то, да? Стой, стой, стой. Там списав, він заболів. І броди попали.
Не, я крышу для себя, понимание, что нужно
А что, человек?
Наконец-то, да?